Hey guys, this is Ashton from MuseThemes. Today I'm stoked to share with you our new Chart Connect widget. In an awesome continuation to our Connect series, this is a powerful and easy to use widget that allows you to create a variety of interactive and stylish charts and graphs on your Muse webpage, all with the use of Google Spreadsheets. If you're familiar with our Connect series already, it uses the same system of online spreadsheets to provide the content for the widget so they can easily be updated and revised by you or your clients without having to re-upload anything or even having to open Muse at all. By looking at our demo here, you can see a variety of different charts displayed, all which have customizable colors, content, and animation. They're interactive as well. As I hover over each section, I get this hover effect and a stylish tooltip displaying the values. Also, a really cool feature, if I check out this donut chart here, I can click on these categories to filter them out from the graph, and the graph will automatically shift itself elegantly to reflect only the categories that are active. So it's a very powerful widget that we're very excited about, and we think users are really going to love it. So let's dive into Muse and we're going to take a look at how we set this up. As soon as you get the widget into Muse, if you click this drop-down arrow, you'll get 4 different kinds of charts that are all displayed as their own individual widget. We have bar, donut, line, and pie charts. Now I'm going to run through the first 3 in detail, only because donut and pie charts have very similar setups. So starting with a bar graph, we can go ahead and drag the widget out onto the page. And I'll go ahead and center it here. As you can see here, we just get this one container element, kind of marking where the chart is going to sit. And first thing to note is that this widget does work beautifully and responsive. This will come set default to responsive width, but you can change this to full width or otherwise if you'd like, but I'll go ahead and leave it as is. So let's pop open the settings panel and take a look. The first field here is your Widget ID. Now this is something that you create yourself and it has to be unique to each occurrence of the widget. So if you have multiple charts on the same page, just make sure to give each one a different name. Now the second field is the CSV source. There are basically 2 options for creating your chart. We have Google Spreadsheets or a local CSV file. Now we will include a CSV file in the demo for those that want to use it. However, most people do prefer the Google Spreadsheets option, and in most cases it'll result in better functionality anyway. So I'm just going to leave it set as that. And next is the Google Spreadsheet key. Now to get this, we need to create a spreadsheet. So we've included a link on the bottom of the settings panel here for a bar chart data template. So simply click this and you'll get a pre-made spreadsheet opened up in your browser. Now when you get this initial spreadsheet, you may notice that it's not editable. So it's important that as your very first step, you go to File, then Make a Copy. It'll prompt you to name it, and you can do so as you wish. I'll go ahead with My Bar Chart 1, and then click OK. Perfect. So now we have an editable spreadsheet and 4 columns here to pay attention to. The first one here is your bar chart label. This is going to label your sections or your bars on the graph, and you can change these to anything you want, and you can use as many or as little as you'd like. For now, I'm going to go ahead and change this to the days of the week. So we'll go ahead and add Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Great. Next is your bar chart value. Now this is going to mark the value or the number that your bar reaches on your graph. So for now, we can go ahead and change this to something like 15, 25, 50, 65, 75, and 90. So we'll have a nice build in the graph. Now the last 2 columns here are the bar chart background colors and border colors. Now this is where the widget differs slightly from our other Connect widgets. We put the color options for this widget in the spreadsheet as opposed to the widget settings panel, only because the colors are tied directly to the chart data categories. So as you can see here, they require the hex codes for the colors that you want to use. Now if we pop back into the widget settings panel, we've included a link to a color selection tool. So clicking this is going to take you to another web page, and here you can generate the hex code for any color that you want to use. So on the left here, you can pick a base color. I'll go ahead with a darker blue. And the middle section here just displays how different kinds of text formats are going to appear over this color, which is helpful. And the far right here allows you to adjust the different shades of the color. So I'll go with something a little bit lighter. Awesome. Now here in the middle already, I have my hex code ready to go. So I just need to copy this, We will jump back to the spreadsheet, and I'll paste that as my first background color. Perfect. And you can do this for each bar on your chart, which will allow you to create just about any look that you could imagine. So now, when you're ready to try out the spreadsheet, you need to publish it to the web first. So what you're going to do is go to File and Publish to Web. Now in this pop-up here, you can leave this first field set to entire document, but on the second field, you need to change this to CSV, or comma-separated values. And then just click Publish. Perfect. Now to retrieve your spreadsheet key for the widget, you can close this little window here, and we'll just go up to the page URL. Now inside the URL, there's a long string of numbers here that sits between two slashes that you need to copy. So after the word spreadsheets, and after this single letter in the slash, the string starts right here. It's this entire string of numbers all the way up to the next slash. Make sure you don't include any of the slashes in the actual string of numbers that you copy. So I'll go ahead and hit Command-C to copy that. And we'll jump into the widget settings panel, and we'll paste it in the key field. There. Now before we tweak anything else, we can go ahead and preview this in the browser already. And there. We have a beautiful looking graph. We got all of our label names reflected. Got my new blue color here on the first bar. We get this awesome hover tooltip on each bar. And then I can scale the browser down here, and as I do, as soon as we run out of the horizontal space, the widget is reflecting the responsive width nicely. Now another really cool feature, as many of you know, with all of our Connect widgets, they will update automatically when you update your Google spreadsheet. So if I jump back to our spreadsheet, let's say I wanted to change our Tuesday value to, say, 75. All I would have to do is change the Tuesday chart value here, hit enter, and that's it. I can just go back to our preview page. All I have to do is refresh the page, and boom, our graph is already updated. So now I'll jump back into the widget to cover a couple more things in the settings panel. This first drop down here, chart styling, this gives you a few more options inside. The preloader color, which is that little animation you see briefly on the page before the graph is loaded. I'll go ahead and make this, let's make it a purple. Bar chart type, you can do vertical, as we've seen already, or you can make this horizontal as well, which I'll go ahead and do for the demo here. And bar border width, which you can increase or decrease the pixel value here. I'll go ahead and we'll push this up to 7. And the last section is the styling, and I'm just going to run through this very quickly. You can set your font color, size, and font family here. This will be reflected on the graph itself. Now for the tooltips, you can change the background color here, and I'll go ahead and make this black. And then you have your body font and your title font settings all listed here for those tooltips. And I'll go ahead and leave these alone for now. So if we preview this in the browser once more, you can see our changes reflected. Our horizontal graph showing, thicker border, and our tooltips with their black backgrounds. So next, I'm going to go ahead and quickly cover our donut chart. So we'll go ahead and delete our bar chart here, back to our library panel, and I'll drag out the widget onto the page. Now you'll notice this component is a bit smaller, reflecting the more circular nature of this one. But the widget is very, very similar to the bar chart. It's just got a couple of different features inside. So let's pop open the settings panel. Down on the bottom here, we'll click our donut chart data template to start. There we go. And like before, first things first, we're going to go to File and Make a Copy. And I'll label this My Donut Chart 1. So similar to the bar graph, you have your chart label and your chart value here first. And then lastly, your colors for your chart background, hover background, and chart border. So I'm going to leave these all as default since we kind of already ran through this before. But as always, you can customize this to your heart's content. So right now, I'll go ahead and click File and Publish to Web. Change this to CSV, and we'll click Publish and click OK. Now we just got to grab our chart key from the URL. I'll go ahead and copy that. And jump back to our settings panel and paste it in the spreadsheet key field. So already, if I preview this in the browser, you can see we're already functioning, which is cool. And it's got this awesome animation when it loads on the page too. So let's hop back to the settings panel. Now, if we go to our chart setup on this one, we get our preloader color again. Now down here we have this new setting called cutout percentage, and this is going to change the size of the actual donut hole, for lack of a better word. It comes set default to 50, but I'll go ahead and decrease this to 25%. Now here for animation and scrolling, this is going to come default set to animate as we saw, but you can set this to no animation if you wish. Now one cool thing I will note as well, if you leave this set to animate on page load and when in view, you can actually place this widget further down on your page and it will load when you scroll to it, which is pretty cool. So I'll go ahead and extend my page way down. There we go, center it. Great, and I will preview this in the browser again. And as soon as I scroll down, we then see our animation come into play, which is cool. And as always with this widget, like we saw in the demo, you can click the categories to filter certain ones out, and the widget will adjust itself accordingly. And lastly, back to the settings panel, our styling section, similar to our bar graph. This lets you adjust the fonts and the colors of both the chart itself as well as the tooltips. So I'll go ahead and delete this component and scroll back up. And let's now pop out a line chart onto our workflow. We'll go ahead and center it. And again, we'll open the settings panel and we'll click the line chart data template. There we go. And we'll go to File and make a copy. And we'll name this one My Line Chart 1. Now you'll notice right off the bat that our layout here is just a little bit different, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. But first, let's go to File and Publish to Web so that we can start experimenting with this right away. Make sure to change this to CSV. We'll click Publish. We'll jump up to our URL up here and copy that spreadsheet key. And lastly, we'll paste that into the widget settings panel. Perfect. So already, let's go ahead and give this a browser preview just to see how this comes set as default. Cool. You can see we get a loading animation with this one as well. And like with the donut chart, you can click these categories again to filter them out. Now this chart here, this is a bit more complex in the amount of information that it's displaying. So setting up this content uses a bit of a combination of info from the spreadsheet and info from the settings panel. So for starters, our labels on the bottom here, we have January, February, etc. These are actually going to be entered into the settings panel, not the spreadsheet. So if we go ahead and open up the flyout panel, we'll click Chart Setup. And right here where it says Labels, this is where you can adjust them. So for the demo, let's do the days of the week again. We'll go ahead with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And always being sure to separate them with commas. Great. Now back on the spreadsheet, this first column here, line chart label. This is what designates the individual lines. So here we have listed computers, fashion, and furniture. And on my browser preview, you can see here, computers, fashion, and furniture, labeling these lines on the top here. The second column is the line chart value, and this is going to designate the specific point that each of these are going to land on. So we've entered 6 labels in the settings panel with Monday through Saturday, so we have 6 values listed here for each line. Now before I cover these color settings, I want to show you a setting in the flyout panel first. Under our chart setup here, there's an option for fill under line area. Now it comes set default to no fill, but if I change this to fill, let's go ahead and preview this in the browser. And you can see that this drastically changes the look of our chart by adding a fill color to each line beneath its placement. Now the interesting thing about this setting is that, as you can see here, there is a potential for lines to be covered up by other lines because it is a solid fill color. So if we jump back to our spreadsheet and let's look at the line chart background colors, we actually set this one to use RGB color codes instead of hex codes. That way you can also adjust the opacity settings of the color fill. So right now if we go back to that color selection tool that I showed you earlier, which you can find a link to in the flyout panel here, you'll notice that beneath the hex code that's generated, you also get an RGB code here as well. So for instance, let's change this to a blue. There we go. So it generates a code. I can copy these 3 numbers displayed after the RGB. And then I'll jump back into my spreadsheet, and we'll paste that where only these first 3 numbers are. Beautiful. And this last number is your opacity. So it comes set default at 0.75 or 75%, but I'll go ahead and drop this to 25% for now. So I'm going to go ahead and leave all the other colors the same, but I'll change each opacity to 25% just so you can see the difference in the layout. And lastly, the line chart border colors will change the colors of the actual lines themselves using the traditional hex codes. So if I go back to our latest browser preview and refresh the page, you'll see that our blue is reflected on the top layered line, and each color is much less prominent and more see-through now that we've changed all their opacities. So just a couple more settings in the flyout panel to cover. Under Chart Setup, you can set the border width and the hover border width for the actual points or the dots on the chart. And lastly, under Styling, just as before, you can set the font styles and colors for both the chart text and the tooltip text. So that is our Chart Connect widget. It might sound lengthy or overwhelming, but only because of how versatile, flexible, and stylish this widget really is, but it actually is quite simple to use once you get the hang of it. The uses for this widget are endless, and it's a great way to put even more control in the hands of your clients, which is always a good thing. So we really hope you guys enjoy the widget, and if you run into any trouble at all, we're always here to help. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.